In this and the following lectures, we'll be testing a real-world API and at the same time discover more and more features of Postman. We will take Trello.com API, which is an online tool for managing lists and tasks, and create a test with a few requests. In case you do not have an account with Trello, I invite you to sign up for a free account. Once you log in, you will be able, for example, to create a new board. Inside that board, you will be able to create a new list, my to-dos, and in that list you will be able to add a card, which is basically like a task. You can create another list, let's call it done, and once you have completed a list, you can just move it from this list, from to-dos list to done. The point of this lecture is not to show you the Trello web interface, but to achieve exactly this task, but by using the Trello API. And once it works, to add tests which make sure the API performs the same every time you run the tests. So let's go straight into it. The first task would be to create a new board. So in order to do that, you should have a look at the API. Most APIs provide you with sort of a documentation, and in case of a Trello and many other providers, they have a dedicated domain where you can find additional information. So for Trello.com, I invite you to go to developers.trello.com, and this is your starting point for using the API. Now, you can see here that it's already providing us with a quick start. I'm going to click Get Started. So what I'm looking for at this point is sort of the API documentation, which tells me which endpoints are available, and I would be looking for something like creating a new board. So this is why I'm clicking here the API docs, and there's quite a lot of information on everything that is possible here. But I'll have a look here first at boards. In order to create a board, I expect that I will need to submit a post request. This looks very tempting, so post on boards would create a new board. And as you can see here, this request is intended to create boards. Below you find a list of fields that you can use while creating the board. But as you can see, only one of them is actually mandatory. So the name of the board is required. Let's go ahead and copy this address and gonna paste it in Postman. Of course, a post request, and if I'm clicking the params, instead of name, I will put my board. Now, if I try to submit this request, this will not work because I don't have any valid key. So basically what Trello is telling us is that it doesn't have no idea who we are and why we're trying to do this, but it's telling us you're not authorized, so something is wrong. And this is quite normal because Trello, when creating a new board, needs to associate that board with an account, so it cannot just create a board somewhere. So let's have a look on how you can get a key. So in order to use the API, you will need to first create an application key, which sort of identifies your application with a Trello API, so that the Trello API knows who's actually making the calls. And this is the API key that I am getting. I'll put this, add here a new parameter key. Put a key here, and additionally this identifies my application, but it doesn't actually identify the user. So the next thing I will do is to generate a token. So basically, in order to call the API, there are two information that are required. One of them is the key, which I already input, which identifies my application, and the second one is the token, which identifies the user who's trying to authorize using the application. Now, the application in this case is Postman, but imagine that you're building your own application, and this is important for Trello so that you can recognize which application is actually calling their API. Now, because this is just a testing scenario, I will just generate a token, and I will do that manually. But as you can see, normal user will get this information as well. So it's just telling me that my application is trying to access my account, which of course I allow for testing purposes, and I'm being generated a token. I'll take this token, put it in Postman, and voila. Now I have created a new board. If I go back to my Trello account, if I go back to Trello and I'm looking at the boards, I can see that a new board was created. This board actually contained already pre-filled lists. And if I look again at the documentation, I will see here that there's another field, default lists, which is a Boolean value. And if I select this one, I will not create default set of lists like this one. So let's shortly adapt our API. Put my new board. I'm resubmitting this. And my new board would be just a simple board which doesn't have any list.